Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Oh my god. Sorry, I forgot to turn off the headphone feed. When I tested the audio in the beginning, I put it through my headphones. So I'm saying we're gonna be back. Today will be our first episode back, following our brief hiatus at the end of last year, due to my injury. But we're back. And we're gonna start out not with a movie. We're going to start out with the post-crisis world that we have on the CW. So, this year's big crossover event was Crisis on Infinite Earths. And much as the tagline, which was reappropriated for this crossover, world will live, worlds will die, and the universe will never be the same. We got that little taste at the end of Elseworlds. Much like that, we had Nothing is the Same now. So rather than talk about how Crisis ended, which, if I remember correctly, either I wanted to do that or I actually did do that. I don't quite remember. Because, again, injury. Let me take a look while I'm doing that. But we're going to talk about what the new landscape looks like and how the shows have reacted to this post-crisis world. Now, there are some shows that had to do more. I did talk about it. That was the most recent episode, was Crisis on Infinite Earths, parts 4 and 5. Now, there was some shows needing to adapt more than others. Now, I have not caught up on Black Lightning yet. I'm in the process of catching up in Season 2. I just finished rewatching Season 1. I'm like 5 episodes into Season 2 now. And I did watch Earth Crisis, which, if you aren't watching Black Lightning, I would use Earth Crisis as a jumping on point to see if that's your kind of show. Only because the entire cast does such a great job in that episode. It's probably my favorite episode of the show so far, unless it's something in Season 2 or Season 3 that's better than that. That's going to be my the best episode so far. It ties in the Crisis, and it tells a story that's kind of self-contained, and that's by design what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to, especially for a crossover, it's going to show off why you should watch this show, and that's what it does. And it ends with his Earth being destroyed. So I haven't seen Black Lightning yet. Black Lightning does need to address Crisis, only because he's now on Earth Prime with everyone else. So that does need to happen. Obviously, the biggest change is Arrow has ended now in the aftermath of Crisis. We got Green Arrow and the Canaries, which takes place in the future, which, by the way, probably my favorite episode of that show since, like, Season 5, Season 6, and it really felt like Season 1, Season 2 Arrow. And that, I mean, in the best possible way. It is the best the show has been in a long time. Hands down the best episode of Season 8. Best episode of Season 7, even, I would include 2 in that. I can't think of a specific episode in Season 5 or 6. I just know it was a very strong season. I can't think of a specific episode that I would say would be better. But hands down, one of the best episodes in a long time of Arrow. Green Arrow and the Canaries. Hopefully that gets picked up. I know Superman and Lois got picked up to a full series. And hopefully that gets picked up. That's something I'm very much looking forward to. So that happened. Then came Oliver's funeral. Now I think that the series finale of Arrow really dropped the ball. Because I feel like it. Oh yes, I did have thoughts on. I did. I had to go back and look at my notes because it was like 2 weeks ago at this point, or a week ago, as some call it. I did take notes. Number one, I think you probably could have milked a full season out of this. I think you could have done a backdoor pilot in Green Arrow and the Canaries and used that as a springboard to kind of tell the story that you're going to tease going forward, and then kind of set up where you're going to go next year. Because I think that Green Arrow and the Canaries can't just be the Deathstrokes. I think that if they continue doing that there's only so much you can pull from that before it gets tired. So you do eventually need to go somewhere else. And I think that if they use the full season of Arrow to tell the story of what happened in that future timeline, now that in the post-crisis universe, I think that could have given them more time to build what happened and set up how it really works. Now, my other issue with the Arrow finale is that they resurrected too many people. And I understand why. It's because you have crisis happens, and now everything's different. And because everything's different, people lived that didn't live before, and all of that. Kind of re-rolled like Flashpoint happened, and basically what happened is they every decision gets redone, and everything changes slightly. And it's the same thing here with Crisis. But my God, not everyone needed to live. Like, I love Tommy Merlin. I think that killing him off in season one was a terrible idea, a great tragedy for the show. You didn't need to bring him back. It's gonna amount to nothing, unless his son's gonna show up in Green Arrow and the Canaries. I don't see why. Or daughter. I know he had a kid. I don't remember what the gender of the kid was that he had with Laurel. Like that would have been like that's just a weird decision. Why is Moria back? And why was that a decision that was not considered integral to his character? And that was like the big thing is like if the decision isn't integral to the character, then it was redone. But it's like, how is his mother's death not integral to his character? Like, come on. There was so much that went wrong with that finale. I don't know. I just feel that it was poorly done, and it's like they really didn't stick the landing there. I think that's the most important thing to note is that the landing was not stuck going forward. So that was Arrow. The Flash came back on Tuesday. The Flash, I really liked the premiere episode of. It was the strongest episode of The Flash we had in a long time, much like Arrow, Green Arrow, and the Canaries was. Because I didn't care for season 5 much, and season 4 kind of meandered and took weird turns, and decisions were made, not great decisions. And about midway through season 3, it started to. There's a trend here between Arrow and the Flash, and it's starting to pick back up and get into a place where it should be. So I think that this is a very strong return, and it really sets up what they're going to be doing for the back half. I think the villain for the back half is going to end up being Thawne. I think it has to end up being Eobard Thawne, but the other person I could see it being is I could see them doing Cobalt Blue and having it be Eddie, who's been resurrected as a result of Crisis. Because keep in mind, everyone who was involved in Crisis remembers the world before, but doesn't remember the universe after. And one of the things they said too, because Cisco's going off after this episode to go and go through the go through the world and see what the changes are. I think one of the big changes could end up being that Eddie survived, and it would explain how Eobard is still alive too. And I would really like to see Rick Cosnett come back and play a villain. That'd be really interesting to see. Because again, him dying in season 1. Huge mistake. And again, trends. So I think that's what's going to end up happening. My original idea, they're probably not going to do. My original one where, what's it called? They would do Red Death, but with Oliver taking the mantle, but I don't think that's likely. Speaking of which, I don't know how that would even play out, because the Flash's timeline's all over the place at this point, because Barry was supposed to die in Crisis, and then Barry didn't die in Crisis, and now everything's different, and it's what, I don't even know. So I think that this has a lot of room to grow and do things. They brought in Dr. Light, the new Dr. Light. I like that. So let's see where they go from here. Supergirl had probably the biggest status quo change because her show had been relocated to Earth 1, and they seem to really be going nuts with that, and I really like that they did that. When they brought her in, they now everything's different. They've used it as an avenue to resurrect Lex on a permanent basis. I like Lex as a recurring bad guy. I love the Watchtower that they have now as their own little Arrow Cave or the bunker or Star Labs. I like that they called it that too. Away from the DEO. Loved the episode with all the Brainiacs to really show off Jesse Rath's range as an actor. Um, and he's really an underutilized talent on that show, I think, and really he could probably carry the show on his own. He's such a good actor. Um, what else was there? Um, when they brought Win back, they've brought back Win. I like that too. Um, that's not gonna be a permanent basis though. So it does reestablish that the Legion of Superheroes does still exist on Earth Prime now. That's an important thing. I see why they did that too. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out going forward, um, and see what they do. I do hope that Lex remains through the entire season. I hope he takes on more of like a Malcolm Merlin role to Supergirl, where it's like he's just a constant thorn in her side, and it's just kind of a like not even like a fully antagonistic relationship. Like he's there, he's always trying to get under her. I think it's a really interesting way to use that relationship. But I also see a world where he could get shipped off to Superman and Lois. But who knows? And then what was the last? Oh, Batwoman. Batwoman didn't quite establish changes. Oh, that was the other thing I want to talk about. Let's talk about Batwoman first, and I'm going to talk about this in the Flash. Batwoman had one big change where the Kate and then the sister Beth from Earth. And by the way, I want to tell a quick little anecdote. I have a coworker who got into Batwoman because I told her, "Oh, Ruby Rose is a new show," and she loves Ruby Rose, so she got into it. And then she watched part 1 of Crisis, and then came back with when the show came back, and she was like, "I was really confused." I'm like, "Yeah, you needed to watch Crisis. I told you that." And she was like, "Okay." And then she went back and watched it, and she's like, "What the hell was that?" So now she's all caught up, and it's like, but like Beth gets resurrected, because not resurrected really. That's the wrong word. Like Earth, an alternate Earth, Beth ends up on Earth Prime, and that seems to be a thing because like even on Supergirl they had that where alternate Earth refugees kind of came, and it'd be interesting if any one show really addressed that. But I think that this alternate Earth Beth is gonna end up dead, within a few episodes, which is unfortunate. Um, but I think that it'd be cool if any show were to do that. Like everything's different now, and it's like there are these villains that we didn't know where they came from, and it's like, well, now here comes what's it called? Just going out and doing that. That's going to be the big reveal, I think, is that there's going to be refugees from alternate Earths who's showing up now, and they can't really track them because it's not like they have different frequencies because they're on Earth Prime, and that's how they tracked people in Earth 2 back in season 2. But now because everything is slightly different, it's going to be, weird a little bit. So let's see how that plays out. I'm interested to see where they go with all of these shows for the rest of the season. Now that Arrow's done, I have not seen the most recent episode of Legends. The first episode didn't quite hook me in, but the most recent episode I was gonna watch it, but it got preempted by the State of the Union. The first episode didn't quite hook me in. I like the concept's interesting, but like if you're gonna do this, I'm watching a DC comic show, and I get that you want to use real world villains, but use some DC villains too. Like I feel like using real world events is cool and all, but like and you have that kind of leeway to do it, but like throw in some DC characters there too, and like the legends don't really feel like they're characters. They feel like caricatures more. I still watch the show, but I feel like it's gone a little off the rails, and partially a good way, partially a bad way. Like last season just felt weird because like yeah, Neuron's there, but like all these magical creatures are like magical creatures from mythology, from like real world mythologies, and it just feels kind of weird. So like hopefully this is hopefully this is a little bit like hopefully the season's a little bit better, but we'll see. Because even at the worst, these shows aren't terrible. Like at its worst, Agents of Shield was borderline unwatchable for most of season 1 until the Winter Soldier hit. Agents of Shield was unwatchable. Like I what was it? The Inhumans, terrible. Like no DC show has gotten to that point yet, but they could very easily veer into that territory, where it's like the the changes that are being made on what's it called, on Legend of Tomorrow and things like that. They're weird. It's a little weird, but it hasn't quite veered off to the point where it's unwatchable as a result. If you catch my drift. Um, so we'll wrap up with that for today. We'll be back next week with a regularly scheduled episode. I'll be putting up a poll on Twitter for what movie we should do. It's probably going to be Jay and Silent Bob reboot, Harriet, or Motherless Brooklyn, which are going to be the three options, all of which are recent, and that poll will be going up shortly from here. Starting on next Wednesday, I believe it is. Let me look at my schedule. Wednesday the 12th, yes. There will be the first episode of Dreamscapes will be up on Wattpad, and at some point it will be available on the iBook store for free. And at the end of April, let me get the date real quick, April 28th, we will be releasing The Muses on Amazon and on Kindle and physical through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So look out for all of that stuff coming soon to support the show. We have a blog where we do reviews of like audiobooks and things like that. Like I'm finishing up a review for Thrawn Allegiances, I think it's called, the second Thrawn book that came out recently. The one with Darth Vader. That should be being posted later today. We will be doing the next one I'm going to have up is The Water Dancer, which I'm finishing up now. And then we'll be doing the third and final Thrawn book before the Ascendancy series starts in October. So we'll be back with all of that later this month. We'll be keeping you posted on that. So next Thursday the 13th, we will be doing one of those three movies, the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, Motherless Brooklyn, or Harriet. So until then, have a great rest of your day.